Thanksgiving, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the
Geek Buddies. Hey!
Well, we're coming to you live this week. Well, not live, actually. We're coming to you here on a Thanksgiving week with a special show here from the Geek Buddies. Unfortunately, Michael Vogel cannot join us today as he is traveling all over the East Coast. They're celebrating with family and friends, but the two of us are here on the West Coast, and we're going to have a little fun talking about stuff that's going on in the world of entertainment. I am the Outlaw John Roker, running producer and host here on the Geek Buddies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer. And what I'm thankful for this year is you all. I think Johnny's thankful for you all. Vogel, I don't know. He didn't bother showing up.
It's that's a valid question. It's a valid concern to have. Yeah, I'm very thankful for the for all of you all who watch us and listen to us, and for the new people who've come on this year as well to discover the Geek Buddies. We're always picking up new people, which is really great to hear and see. And all the people you run into, Shannon. You recently had a conversation, right, with some people. Can you talk about that?
I did, yeah. I don't know if they're listening right now, but you know, one of my day jobs here, along with doing Geek Buddies and the occasional TV or writing job, is I am a performer at Universal Studios Hollywood. And my first show the other night, there was a trio of young adults. And as we we did our little interaction with Blue, the Velociraptor, at the Raptor encounter. And as they were walking away, one of them held back. He's like, "Hey, this was a Geek Buddies encounter." I was like, "Hey!" And they stayed until after the show. So yes, Caleb from Stockton, who was wearing an awesome X-Men '97 hoodie. We chatted for a few minutes and took a picture, but they were all just like, we really enjoyed the show. They wanted to say hi to John and Mikey. John's hearing it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where Mikey.
But yes, I mean, we've had that a couple of times where people will kind of see us out in the wild. A lot of times at Comic-Con, but every once in a while, just randomly out in public, and people are always so nice and so friendly about just that they enjoy what we do. And it's like, man, that's nice to hear, because obviously we read the comments, but getting to interact with people face to face, that's always a lot of fun.
I think the face-to-face is always much more fulfilling than times the comment thread. Not that there aren't great comments in our comment section, but sometimes the comments can get a little heated, a little hairy. And so when you meet people out in the wild, they're actually much more conducive to conversation, much more complimentary, and much more open to receiving what you've done and the work you've created. So it's great to hear that whenever I get a text from Shannon or Michael. When it's always interesting when Michael gets we get a text from Michael about the Geek Buddies fans he runs into. It's always a good thing, and a good thing to hear for sure.
He ran into one in New Zealand. So.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. That's how far our global reach is, for sure. But we're here to talk about a lot of things going on in the world of entertainment. I finally got my Thanksgiving thing behind us correct. There it is. A little DC shout out for that Thanksgiving picture there, but I love it to put us in the mood here. We're going to talk about some trailers. We're going to talk about some news coming on the Marvel front, and we're going to deliver our Gladiator II spoiler review. So that's going to be at the back end here of how we do things. We'll take a couple of breaks throughout, but that's how we're going to handle things. So Shannon, shall we start with the trailer here?
With trailer. Yes, it's just the one. As you all know, the days leading up to any sort of significant holiday break, the news does get a little quiet, but we did get a new, and I'm guessing it's the official trailer. I'm guessing it will probably be the last one before we get the second season of Squid Game. So in the initial teaser, we see that Jihan is back in the game. We left season one. It looked like he was kind of going to be on the hunt for people. And based off the teaser, it's like, oh, he's back in it somehow. Like either he found him or what have you. But we kind of get confirmation that he's looking for them, but it looks like they find him first, because we get that shot of him in the back of a limo talking to someone on a loudspeaker, basically saying, "What do you want?" And he's like, "Put me back in the game." And we get more of the expanded games that we saw in the first season. And we also see, anytime there are characters in need, that makes for a good story, because, you know, he is the only character. I mean, outside of the guys behind the masks, which we're assuming some of them are the same.
Right.
Lee Jung-jae is the only one coming back, as far as we know, from that first season. But getting to meet very quickly this new group, and you see why they're there, for what reasons, and how Ji-hun basically starts to Spartacus them a little bit, like, let's take the fight to these people because these are bad people. You know, that first season was an unexpected pleasure, ended up becoming one of the biggest things that Netflix has ever released, maybe the biggest. But yeah, this new trailer certainly has me excited. How about you, Johnny? What'd you think?
Yeah, I did a reaction for this one. It's up on the channel as well, and this is a fantastic series. I mean, it currently has more than 2.2 billion hours viewed, which equates to approximately 265 million views, according to Netflix's all-time top TV chart. The first season got 17 Emmy nominations. Shannon, this is the kind of show that could have easily just kind of slid past the Emmy voters, not been nominated. You know, Netflix doesn't always have the greatest track record when it comes to these award shows, depending on the shows. But certainly the fans that get behind a show love a show and keep it alive for as long as it does. And certainly coming back with the season 2, how do you up the game? How do you make it more interesting? How do you make it more topical? These kinds of things. And so throughout this quote unquote official trailer, because we've seen a couple trailers before this one, I thought I was just caught up in the story that they're telling. And listen, this is clearly, as you said, a Spartacus situation. It's the people with the money and the mansions on the hill. We're going to storm the mansions. We're going to eat the rich. We're going to, you know, barbarians at the gate type of thing. We're going to go crash it all and lead this thing. But I thought what was really interesting here was the line in the trailer where the person behind the, by the way, golden pig, that's just so perfect in what it's symbolizing. But hearing the voiceover of the guy who runs the game, or who's in charge of the game, saying, you know, this game isn't going to change until society changes, until the world changes. And so there's a commentary here about the world. In a way, it's kind of turning it on the fans who loved the show and then loved the reality show because they love seeing people go through this stuff. It's like, well, why do you want to destroy it if you enjoy watching it, right? So it's working on a number of levels, which I thought was really cool. And how are the people in the game going to react? 'Cause I said this in my trailer reaction. Like, remember the old guy in the first season? We know what he turns out to be. Is it now player 456's turn to be kind of the old guy surrogate in this particular run? And how many of these people who are new players are going to question why he's involved, why he keeps surviving, why he's trying to create the revolution? Will they really want to be a part of it? So there's a lot coming out of this trailer that gets me excited for season 2.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely parts of the first season where you see the challenge that the players get into, and they're like, all right, if we don't move, we just don't go, like, we'll be fine. And like eventually, like an unseen timer runs out, and then something terrible happens. So the intent that we're getting from the first season is you play or you die. Yeah. Whereas this one, you can see they're putting it sort of in parts of it in the players' hands, because the players are saying one more game. And it's just how greed sort of takes over. And it's like, well, here's the opportunity to do this. What I have on the outside, I'm not going to be able, I'm not going to be able to survive unless I win this. So I've got nothing to lose. So it is really, really fascinating how, again, we talked about this with our Wicked review, how messaging, when it feels like messaging, when it feels like it's bonking you over the head, it's not enjoyable. It feels like you're being preached at. Whereas if the messaging is part of the story and you're so caught up in the story that the messaging doesn't initially take effect, you're just more concerned about the characters. That's what a good story is. It's when it stays with you after the fact that you do think about the message that was there, excited, sort of subliminally, that you are then able to come to your own conclusions as a result of this story. I think that's what the first season did really well. And again, based off of what we've seen of the second season, it looks like they've probably done it again, but we will find out, Johnny, because all those episodes drop on Netflix December 26th. Yeah, and just to add a couple more things to what you were saying, Shannon, to amend your comment from earlier, there are 2 other characters coming back here. Ooh. Detective Hwang Jun-ho, who is played by Will Ha-jun, is coming back, and Lee Byung-hung, who is the mysterious frontman, who I don't want to ruin season 1, but we find out the connection that player 456, Lee Jung-jae's character, has
with the front man. So we heard him already in the trailer. So clearly he's coming back, but the detective is coming back. So those are three kind of characters coming back into season 2. So that's a really interesting thing to see. It's not big. There's like the former players, it's just those three characters, which makes sense. One holding down each opposite sides of the battle, and one trying to find out what's going on here. Because one other thing about the trailer that stood out to me, Shannon, is we're seeing things outside the game. Those guys with machine guns, those explosions in the tunnel, are they working together with player 456, or are these rebels to the game? As the word has gotten out about the game on social media, are these people lined up who have created a militia in essence to go after, or is this official government people going after, police going after the game? What is the implications there? So there's a lot of that here that I think is interesting. And the creator has also said that there will be more simple children's type games thrown into this one. That's one of the allures of the first season, was seeing how these children games led to deaths and bloody end for so many players. So that's going to be exciting to see what new ones. I mean, the X's and O's thing is interesting, and what more we're going to get as we see season 2, as you said, on December 26th, which I imagine is all the episodes, right?
Typically that's what Netflix does. I mean, every once in a while they'll break a season up in 2, but they usually announce that ahead of time. So my guess is after, if you celebrate your own personal Squid Game on Christmas Day, you'll be able to decompress with the actual Squid Game on Netflix the day after.
I just think it's ironic because we're all about to maybe go into our own Squid Game as we go to a home for Thanksgiving. So we will see how that all plays itself out for sure. All right, let's take a quick break, and on the other side, we'll talk a little Marvel news, both good and bad, here right after this.
That was an electric guitar hum.
I like the way that worked, actually. Well, let's get into this, man. There's some Young Avengers news. Let me bring them up here. This is from other sources, including Dark Horizons. This weekend, a report emerged suggesting there's a good reason that the Young Avengers film has not yet officially been announced, and the project is rumored to have been scrapped in favor of doing the project as a Disney Plus series titled Champions. This is according to Daniel RPK. Look, Daniel and I follow each other. He's right way more often than he's wrong. So people are giving this thing a little bit of validity. He reports that the reason for the rebrand to Champions comes because that many of the actors who make up the Young Avengers aren't exactly quote unquote young. In the comics, they're all teens. It's also indicated the shift to a TV show is due to the Marvels underperforming at the box office last year, and also lowers the risk of an underperforming Young Avengers spinoff potentially damaging the Avengers brand. And Young Avengers so far include 27-year-old Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop, 27-year-old Catherine Newton as Cassie Lang, as you see there on the screen, 22-year-old Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan, 21-year-old Joe Locke as Billy Maximoff, who we met, and 18-year-old Chocotil Gomez as America Chavez. And of course, we also got the news possibly that Hawkeye season 2 is supposed to begin shooting in the fall of next year as well. So, Shannon, you hear all this news. What are your thoughts on this? Does this rebrand make sense? And because of the ages of the characters, and do you think it's smart that they're going with a Disney Plus series versus a movie, a theatrical film, or a Disney Plus outing versus a theatrical film? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, we'll never know what the original plans were that were going to be for the multiverse saga that would have concluded with Secret Wars. Like, there was definitely the thought that they started planting those Young Avengers seeds early in the anticipation that maybe we would get that movie prior to the multiverse collapsing. So, a lot of things happened. There's been a sort of a lukewarm reception to some of the entries. You had Jonathan Majors no longer serving in the role as Kang. So a lot of things most likely changed. I do understand the idea that if we put something out with the name Avengers in it and it underperforms, that could potentially really damage that brand, because there have been 4 Avengers movies, and they have all been wildly successful. Also on a Disney Cruise Line, they filmed some cruise line specific content for those Disney ships, and one of those is a scene. It's with Riri Williams, Cassie Lang, and I can't remember if it's I think it's Kamala Khan.
Okay.
But that's another sort of indication that these younger members of the MCU, not teenagers necessarily, but younger members are going to team up in some fashion. So Champions is a newer title. Like it came out, I think, in 2016 after Civil War II, where Tony and Carol went up against each other. So rebranding it I mean, you know, Miles Morales becomes a part of Champions. Kamala Khan is a part of Champions. So I think the idea that they want to take those younger characters and put them in their own thing does make sense. And also rebranding it Champions, I think is probably the right idea, just to differentiate what we have gotten in the past. That this is not an offshoot of the Avengers. This is their own thing. We'll find out what that asterisk with Thunderbolts means. I mean, everyone is sort of speculating, like, is that going to be Dark Avengers? Well, I mean, in the comics, I don't think they ever call themselves the Dark Avengers. They're just the Avengers. So it does make sense to me. And also, you do have some really talented people there. Like, I was not the biggest fan of Catherine Newton's Cassie Lang. But I really like Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop, and I really like Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan. So I think the idea that they would do sort of like a big Disney Plus series, I think that does make sense. But we'll find out after the multiverse collapses with Secret Wars. So it seems like this is still a little bit away right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is maybe how they come together, kind of like we saw that A-Force moment in Endgame, right? With all the women coming together. It may be that they all come together by happenstance during Secret Wars, and then like kind of, well, I mean, we saw we saw at the end of the Marvels that she's putting the team together. So do they finally come together right at Secret Wars and participate in all that? Or are they going to go on missions? Like, when does this series come out? Does the series come out after Endgame? If it comes out after Endgame, then I'm sorry, not Endgame, Secret Wars, the last Secret Wars, then it makes sense for them to kind of maybe work out their abilities to fight with each other together in that situation. Because I can't imagine you'd put this series together and put it out before Secret Wars. So we'll see how that plays itself out. What do you think, Shan? Do you think it'll come before or after Secret Wars?
Definitely after. Definitely after. That would be my thought. And also with Secret Wars, and granted, you know, they're going to adapt it the way they want to adapt it for the movie. But with the Secret Wars comics, I mean, it becomes Battle World, and there are different folks in charge of different, like these fragments of former universes. I mean, maybe that is how they come together, is they all happen to be on the same sort of fragmented world.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. But I also think that the rebranding makes sense, and the Young Avengers thing is absolutely correct, because I bet a lot of the new generation, we know the new generation. The new generation is much more about, hey, listen, I earned that, I deserve this, I get this, I give it to me. They're much less conflicted than we've seen in the past, and so they're very vocal about the things that they want and don't want. So I think a lot of them came out and probably said, listen, we don't want to be seen as the Young Avengers, because that implies naive, that implies inexperienced, that implies not as powerful as the original Avengers. So maybe there's a connotation thing that a lot of them, through their representatives, said, hey, listen, we don't want to be seen as Young Avengers. So they go back to the drawing board. Hey, we already have Champions. Let's use that. That's great. The connotation is different than the Avengers, but we can be the Avengers maybe down the road as we get older and people like the series and like us down the road. Then maybe we do become officially the Avengers, which a lot of people are wondering what the Avengers are going to be. And as you said, Miles Morales, there's quite a shift, quite a number of people who become a part of the Champions and have been part of the Champions throughout the comics in Marvel. So you leave it open that people can come in and out of that team depending on how you want to use them in the MCU going forward. So I think it's smart to rebrand. It makes all the sense in the world. You save the Avengers brand for what it is, and you hedge your bets and call them Champions for now to see how the series goes and see how people connect to these characters. And look, some of these characters have got an undue amount of crap from some of the anti-woke commenters. So there's some work to do here in trying to get them fully over. And I think it makes sense to put into a series to get people reacquainted with them. Not everyone's maybe watched all the series with these people. So boom. And you've got Billy, who's coming out of that great Agatha All Along series. So that's another good character to put in this. So this is going to be a lot of fun. If they get the right person involved, I think this series could be a huge hit for Marvel. And then excite us for what's coming down the road for an Avengers film when they finally get to it, for sure. Yeah, all right. Well, let's talk about something else here, brother. We've got some Captain America 4 news. Apparently, there are more reshoots happening for this particular film. Shan, this is kind of crazy to hear about this stuff happening again. Will this is apparently an issue going on because they had some test screenings that Marvel did, and there were rumors about the inclusion and exclusion of a certain cameo. And this is apparently Marvel. This is for the rumor from Daniel RPK again. The story he's presenting through comicbookmovie.com is reporting that the third round of test screenings for the film recently took place, and once again, the reaction wasn't what Marvel had hoped for. More changes are being done on the film. It's not clear how extensive this new additional photography is and whether the director, Julius Ona, is present. So the film is supposed to be released here, Shannon, in the next couple of months. So you hear about a third round of reshoots, and what are your thoughts on this? Do you believe this report, first of all? And second of all, now does this bode even worse? Because people came out of that last trailer super excited. So now this news comes out, and for those of us who are in the bubble, do we start now to worry that maybe they still can't get this thing right, and we're going to get a middling to good, I guess, type of Captain America 4 instead of a great one?
Historically, this is not to say that this is what happens every time. Historically, when something goes back and reshoots and reshoots and reshoots and reshoots, usually the results aren't great.
Yeah.
You know, famously, you think about Justice League, how Zack Snyder left halfway through post. Joss Whedon came in and completed and rewrote, and what we got was sort of a Franken movie of something that just didn't quite work. Look, there is the possibility that extra shooting, they feel like they're going to find, they're trying to find those missing pieces. But if the result of test screening is not going well is to shoot more stuff, I don't know. I mean, Marvel has a history, especially when you get into phase 3 of going and doing reshoots. But a lot of that, as far as I know, is trying to shore up connections to other movies, as well as sort of fill in the void of things that they didn't get or things that they didn't realize that they needed at the time. This all kind of sounds like you're putting band-aids on. That is what it sounds like. And also, you can have a mess of a movie and still cut a great trailer. I mean, I think that's something that, I was talking about with Kalinowski the other day, was the people who make the trailers really need to be getting some awards, because they get us excited for some movies that come out and we're like, I mean, we're going to talk about one in about 5 minutes. So it's a bummer because, I mean, again, and maybe this is going to do it. I mean, maybe this is the thing. Maybe they, in the wake of those underwhelming test screenings, maybe they have sort of identified the issues and they're going to be able to address those with this third round of reshoots. Again, historically, it's not a great sign, but anything can happen. I mean, I'm certainly crossing my fingers because, I am an unabashed lover of Harrison Ford. And I would really like to see Anthony Mackie's first time out with the Shield on the big screen. I would love to see it be a huge success.
Yeah, and this is people aren't talking about this, but, you have to start looking at Malcolm Spellman, right? I mean, like Falcon and Winter Soldier, people are like, well, it wasn't great because it got cut because of COVID and he didn't get a chance to do really what he wanted to do. Well, look, 3 rounds of reshoots, the budget almost $400 million. That at some point, it's like, we have to look at Malcolm on this. And what are you getting right? What are you getting wrong? And why are they constantly doing the reshoots? Is it because the MCU is changing how it's doing its chronological stuff, how it's doing its canon going forward? Or is this a matter of that for whatever reason, Julius Ona and Malcolm can't quite get this right? So what are the real reasons for these multiple rounds of reshoots? Because World of Real, as I said, Jordan Rumi over there, he is speculating that it's about $400 million for this film so far, with including these reshoots. Matthew Orton was hired by Marvel to pen the additional scenes from the recent round of reshoots, which included additional photography for Anthony Mackie, Giancarlo Esposito, and Danny Ramirez. So is they explored more of that with those characters. So the question now, because he got contacted by somebody close to Brave New World, and they said that, quote, "This is standard in the business, and especially in large films requiring pickup." We've heard that standard excuse all the time, Shannon. And at some point, a third round of reshoots is no longer standard. You can't get it right. And you might be right. All they can do is Band-Aids at this point because it comes out in February. And we know Marvel has a history of running these production houses into the ground who are doing their editing and doing their post-production stuff. And so are we going to get another round of reports of Marvel making insane requests of these people because they have to do these reshoots? And if the budget is 400, Shannon, this thing would have to hit like $2 billion to make it look like it legitimately hit a massive profit. And it could stain Anthony Mackie down the road as who a lot of people were thinking, especially out of that last trailer, might be potentially leading a new Avengers team. How can you do that if your film crashes and burns? Because we're seeing how Young Avengers is being transitioned to being a series because of how the Marvels performed. So it could affect Anthony Mackie down the road as well.
Yeah, it's a shame because a lot of times, and again, not every time, but a lot of times with these giant productions, especially when you're doing something like with the MCU, man, yeah, it's not the actor's fault. I mean, right. like I have never been a fan of Brie Larson's Captain Marvel. I have never felt that she has ever really captured that character. I think the most that she has was in Endgame, and she was a very, very small part of that. I also think that, you know, she's an Academy Award winning performer. Yes. So she knows what she's doing, whether or not she's being used correctly, whether or not she was miscast. I mean, and there's certainly the folks that get behind that theory.
Yeah.
I think the Marvels, that wasn't Brie Larson's fault. I mean, Brie Larson was showing up 5-6 days a week, doing her best, and sometimes movies just don't come together.
Yeah.
And I hope that this does not potentially stain Anthony Mackie as Cap, because I do like thematically the way that Steve handed the shield to him. I like him in that role, and I really hope that, I mean, I hope the movie's good, because more than anything, as a fan, I just want to see a good Marvel movie. Yeah. But I hope that he's able to carry on with the character, and that that a Cap 5 wouldn't be off the table because this one didn't deliver.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens in the end, because this could also be nothing to do with Malcolm and Julius. It could actually be the studio. It could be Feige. It could be Marvel changing their minds constantly, and they don't take the hit. It's the creators who take the hit sometimes, as we saw recently, in my opinion, with Leslie Headland and the Acolyte. So we'll see. We'll see down the road what the end result is going to be very soon. You know, and hopefully, if it doesn't get pushed, we'll see it in February for sure. All right, let's take a quick break. And on the other side, we'll do our spoiler review for Gladiator II. Spoiler review here right after this.
Oh, no. I started doing Gladiator, but I think I transitioned over to Pirates of the Caribbean.
You're trying a little commentary on Hans Zimmer, there, a little shade you're throwing at Hans, but yeah. Let's get into it. This is our spoiler review here for Gladiator 2, Part 2, Gladiator 2, whatever you want to say here, with starring Paul Mescal, Connie Nielsen there, Denzel Washington, Pedro Pascal, Fred Heckinger, amongst the cast here, and Joseph Quinn. Really interesting film, really interesting cast. Shannon, tell me overall your thoughts on this. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen it, turn around, go back, or if you don't care, keep listening, keep watching. Your thoughts, Shannon, on this film overall. What are you feeling coming out of Gladiator 2?
I mean, the concept of a Gladiator sequel was kicked around for a very, very long time in the wake of Russell Crowe and Ridley Scott's terrific first film. I mean, you know, that got Russell Crowe his Academy Award. Some people are saying that was sort of the apology for not giving it to him for The Insider, but it was still a terrific performance. I mean, he was an incredible Maximus. And, you know, you had Connie Nielsen, you had Joaquin Phoenix, Djimon Hounsou. I mean, it was a fantastic film. So the idea of a sequel, it's like, well, he's dead. So what is this story?
Right.
And then when you find out that they eventually landed on Lucius, it was kind of like, okay, well, let's see where this goes. It doesn't. Someone's working on the roof, so if you're in vain, I apologize. I know Paul Mescal as an actor. I don't think I've ever actually seen anything that he has done. I certainly didn't see his Academy Award nominated role. But he's an exciting young actor who clearly hit the gym. Bringing us back to that world of Roman gladiatorial times. I mean, the scope of the movie you can't argue with. I mean, it looks incredible. I went and saw this the day after I saw Wicked, which I really liked, but I didn't love.
Right.
And I was hoping that Gladiator 2 was going to take Wicked's place, but it definitely did not. I mean, it was still an enjoyable ride.
Yeah.
I was ready to get off the ride by the end. But ultimately, when you get down to the story, it's sort of like, man, this is a lot kind of beat for beat that first movie.
Yeah.
And the way that they introduce, because what is he called amongst the guys? Hana?
Yeah.
The whole idea that we as an audience have known for a good long while that that's the kid.
Yeah.
I mean, different actor, but I mean, this is the kid from the first Gladiator. It was one of those situations where I'm like, this isn't actually enjoyable because we know.
Yeah.
I mean, the moment that Connie Nielsen sees him, like it's definitely confirmed. Yeah. But it's one of those situations just like, I don't know why this was made. Like, I don't think anyone did a particularly bad job. I thought all the actors, they did their roles.
Yeah.
I thought Ridley Scott, I thought the sequences were great. Maybe not so much with the baboons. I thought the baboons didn't look great. But but overall, just in terms of story, I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, this is when you find out who he really is. Here's the political betrayal. It's like it just felt a little also ran until you get to the end where he has that fight with Denzel, and it's like,
yeah,
Denzel's kind of an old man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a lot of swagger, but he's an old guy. And the fact that this fight is close it just wasn't that satisfying. Even like some sequences that we saw from the trailers, like, you know, the flooding of the arena and all that. I'm like, it just kind of happens. Like, and not that I have to be told in detail how and why this is happening, but I'm like, it just kind of, a lot of stuff just kind of happens.
Yeah.
And ultimately it left me pretty cold. Like, this is not one, even the sequences, I'm like, I don't see me going back and revisiting this at all. I mean, Gladiator 1 from beginning to end, like, it's a great watch, but also it's a great movie to watch in terms of sequences. Like, there are some great acting sequences. There's some great action sequences. This one just didn't have that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the honest truth is that Mescal is not Russell Crowe. And look, I thought Paul, as you said, I thought all the actors, for the most part, I mean, no offense to Fred Heckinger, I thought his Emperor was terrible and ridiculous, and him and Joseph Quinn, like, that's as one note and foolish as you get. Like, that's something out of a B movie Roman Emperor performance, and it was super frustrating because both of them are good actors. Both of them are damn good actors, and having them wasted playing these giggling, emotional, evil, slyly, really transparent, evil emperors, it just went ridiculously too far. I thought Mescal was strong in the role, but he doesn't have the energy and the charisma and the aura that Russell has right in that role. And you have to compare them. People are like, oh, well, why did I compare it? You have to compare them because you're coming out of an Oscar-winning film. When I saw Godfather 2 after seeing The Godfather, I absolutely was comparing it because you've set the bar. Once you've set the bar and you wait all these years later for a sequel, then yes, you have to be judged by that bar. That is part of the judging process. When I went to see Top Gun Maverick, is it going to be better than Top Gun? Why else would you do it 30 years later, right? These are these things, these legacy sequels, especially when they take decades to come out, they have to hit that bar and then rise up, at least hit that bar and hopefully rise above it. And this one doesn't. Now, that being said, it's a fun action film if you're just going to have a fun time. This should have never been released in the fall. It should have been released in the summer. I think it would have made even more money in the summer because people would have been like, this is a fun action time. Go and throw popcorn in my face and have some fun watching the madness going on here. But there's no soul to the movie. There is no soul. There's no heart to the film. And it is super frustrating. As you said, the beats hit the same. Oh, I lost my wife. She's killed in battle. She's a much more of a badass than Russell's wife was, but she's killed in battle. And now I want revenge against Rome because of what they did to my father. And what they've done to my mother, who apparently has not tried to find me at all, and what they've done to my wife. So I will have revenge. And let's throw in Pedro Pascal into all of this. And he's this kind of Roman general who is sympathetic to the situation and also wants to throw the emperors out of power, even though we have no idea why, even though we have no like history with him to see him churn and change and want to throw out the emperors. It's just his sick of it and watching young generations of men die. So there's a lot of commentary here from Ridley within the script and the movie that doesn't have foundational base, and that's frustrating. And so we're moving from one section to the next so quickly that we don't get a moment to just kind of sit in it, really feel it, connect to these characters, and then move on to the next thing as the film unfurls before us. And that gets so frustrating as you're watching the movie. And I'm with you, Shannon. No one did a bad job in terms of the acting other than Heckinger. But overall, though, it was frustrating because they were all a little too one-dimensional in terms of their intention. And there wasn't enough depth, complexity, and true layers thrown out here for us to connect to these characters. So that by the end, you're like, yeah, of course, that all happened in the way that it happened. That makes all the sense in the world. But it's not satisfying for me, at least overall, because you wanted a deeper story, you know?
Yeah, agreed. And again, the comparisons to the first one are inevitable because it's the first one. I mean, when you do have an Academy Award nominated film, the sequel, it's going to get eyes. I mean, very much like Joker, Folie à Deux. I mean, there were a lot of eyes on that movie.
Yes.
When you look at the journey that not just the character of Maximus went on, but that we saw through Russell Crowe's eyes, you understood everything that he did. That this is a guy that believed in the moral superiority of Rome, even though the emperor, who he views as sort of a father figure, is saying it's not really that. Like we want it to be that, but it's not really that. And the guy that I'm going to have to make my successor, I don't trust him. Like you're going to have to be the guy. And you have to have the death where that Commodus kills his own father.
Yeah.
Russell Crowe, he's supposed to be murdered. He gets away. He ends up, he sees what Rome actually is. I mean, granted, he's not in Rome when he's in sort of like, the AAA gladiator leagues, but the whole, are you not entertained? Like he's being educated before our eyes, and everything that he does just makes sense. With Lucius, not so much. I mean, we get that flashback of like, okay, Connie Nielsen sent him away. To protect him. Which I'm kind of like, okay, that makes sense. Then he ends up somehow in Namibia when Roman soldiers come to the village. And in this time, he becomes this incredible fighter. After he loses his wife and he's in that caravan to go be sold, he and was it Mensa? Is it Philip? Is it Philip? Peter Mensa. They're cracking jokes.
Yeah.
I'm like,
hey, no big deal.
That you just lost this, you just lost the love of your life. You're being sold into slavery. I mean, I guess it's like nothing else you can do but laugh, but it's like, that's just not what Maximus did. Like Maximus does not crack a smile until he meets Jaimin Hansu. And after they've gone through that first big intense fight. So a lot of the stuff, I mean, again, I don't totally blame Paul Mescal here. I mean, I think a lot of this is just the writing and why does this movie exist? I don't blame Paul Mescal, but it just didn't track enough.
I mean, like Matt Lucas, why is he in this? It makes no sense that Matt Lucas, it's ridiculous that Matt Lucas is in this. And look, I love Tim McInerney because I'm a big Blackadder fan and I love him in other things that I've seen him in, Notting Hill and what have you, dramatic and comedic. He's great. He can bring the right kind of menace, but here he's so foppish that it becomes a caricature rather than a legitimately like interesting character that has these foibles and these flaws that cost him his house when Macrinus comes in there, Denzel comes in there. There should have been more here. And then I can't remember the doctor who comes in and is the former gladiator. That's essentially the Jaimin Hansu character. So at times this felt like The Hangover Part 2, where you're just repeating the same beats, but you're adding a few new characters or a few new locations. and you're trying to pass off the same movie, but with less depth, less interest. And it becomes obvious as the film goes along that you're like, okay, this doesn't have the weight that or the gravitas, dare I say, that I was hoping for. This is just a fun revenge film with Paul Mescal showing like he's been to the gym, and we get these moments of satisfaction, I guess, if you were cheering for the guy, right? But it doesn't have that ending like Gladiator has. Oh my God, what an ending! You know, that ending had such weight to it and echoed, you know, not only into the afterlife but into the people who were watching, right? Because Maximus was trying to teach them, trying to show them that their bloodthirsty savagery is what is bringing Rome into ruin. Their desire for this kind of stuff is a commentary. You know, we talked about Squid Game season 2, the trailer earlier in the show, and the same kind of thing is the showing you that the greed and the avarice and the desire to watch people suffer, which a lot of people have, is what leads to ruin, is what brings about emperors or rulers like this, no matter what present day or in the past. And so you see that, and there's none of that here. There's no real commentary being done here that is effective. There's commentary being done, but not effectively in the end, and it's super frustrating. Yeah, go ahead, sir. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was trying to think, like, again, when Paul Mescal was announced as being the cast, I mean, they said he's playing Lucius, but they make it like this secret. And so by the time it's finally announced, it's kind of like the audience has been so far ahead of this the whole time. It's like, if they had kept that under wraps, would it have made it a little more, would we have been a little more invested? Maybe.
Yeah.
But ultimately, just wanted one thing and I didn't get it.
What about Denzel? Did you like Denzel in the movie? I mean, he is doing, in my opinion, he is doing his Frank Lucas / Training Day, American Gangster Training Day character throughout. He's got these scenes with Connie, with Pedro, of course with Mescal through a majority of the movie, and then feeding or influencing one of the emperors to turn on the other emperor, and then puts himself in this position, and he's got to fight him. And so does it become a little ridiculous, even though we know it's Denzel and Denzel's having fun in an anachronistic way? Did it feel a little ridiculous after a while, or did you enjoy him throughout the movie?
I enjoyed Denzel Washington as an actor, and getting to see him chew the scenery for 2.5 hours. It was fun, but the main thing comes down to, does a different actor make the movie better? And I don't think they do. I mean, I think if anything, you lose the pizzazz of Denzel, but ultimately the character's not that interesting. That if struggling to think, if Idris Elba was playing it, would it have been a better movie? Probably not. I mean, would he have been just as good as Denzel? Probably. But ultimately, the fault doesn't lie with the actor. I think the fault lies with the script.
Yeah, I agree. You know, because I mean, you look at the Oliver Reed character in Gladiator, which is essentially what Denzel is playing in this one. Obviously, didn't have a lot more to do like Denzel does in this movie, but he leaves an impact in that film big time with how he trains and schools and educates Maximus. And then at the end, at the end of his run in the movie, what happens to him, and what he tries to help Maximus do, and feel sympathy for him. There's power in that. Turning that around and having this guy just using him to get to power, there's not enough here in that relationship. And it's so obvious what he's doing that not only are we ahead, Shannon, of the entire the cast in this movie, characters rather in this movie, because we know it's Lucius, we're also way ahead in knowing that Denzel is an evil dude, way ahead. And so when you present to me a guy who is this driven to destroy tyranny and corruption, and he can't see what Denzel is from the beginning, it just becomes a little ridiculous when this twist happens, and you're the twist, and you're like, oh wow, you know what, all this stuff, and it gets a little frustrating. So I thought it was a good performance, but I thought it's a good performance maybe wasted in a film that should have been a little bit better, because then it would have been even more fun to see Denzel chewing the scenery, as you said he does. What about Pedro? Did you like Pedro? I personally felt he was in and out of the movie. Like some of the scenes worked, and then other scenes I was like, are you in this movie or not? You know, so did you feel that he was delivering a good performance here?
I actually liked Pedro Pascal in this movie,
all right.
and I think his storyline was one of the more interesting ones. I mean, I do think like the character of Maximus kind of got split in two, with Lucius being one side and Pedro Pascal being the other.
That's a great point.
Him being the surprise for me, at least, of him being married to Connie Nielsen, I was kind of like, oh, okay. And I feel like if things had gone differently, that moment where he and Lucius do meet in the arena, that hits a lot harder. Because this is literally the kid that his wife has been despondent about since they've been married. I mean, presumably. So the idea that he is trying to say like, no. But also Lucius's rage towards him also makes sense. Like, you were the guy who came through. You were the guy who gave the order to kill my wife. Like, there's so many good ideas here. That don't quite come together. But his whole thing about his relationship with the emperors, I really, really enjoyed, especially with Joseph Quinn. I mean, I think, I know we'll get to them. I think I'm a little more warm to the twin emperors than you are. But ultimately, it's like there were some really good ideas that didn't quite land, and I feel like them not landing again can't be laid at Pedro Pascal's feet.
Okay. Yeah. What about the Connie Nielsen stuff? Did you think that worked? Did you like the, her finding out, him yelling at her, and then her slowly working her way back into this situation because she loves her son so much, having the meeting with Macrinus here and the back and forth that they have. Did you like her coming back into the fold here as of course the mother of Lucius?
I like it.
And with Derek Jacobi coming back as well. Yeah.
I like it on paper.
Yeah.
I think her being sort of the bridge between the two movies, I think again, on paper, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
And I think Connie Nielsen is a really good actor. I mean, that scene with her and Lucius in the cell, the scene just doesn't work.
Oh my God, it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, you just don't. You don't feel the heartbreak from her. You don't feel the rage from him. Everything feels very performative. And when you're able to kind of separate yourself, that means the story hasn't got its hooks in you.
Right. Well, I mean, you just teased it, so we should get to it. Why are you warmer to these pale, angry, insane emperors than I am? Why do you enjoy? Do you know them personally? Have you hung out with them? Are you auditioning for what's the situation here? Why did you like their performances? I mean, when you compare it to Joaquin, it's not that you can't even hold a candle. You can't even make the candle to hold against the performance from Joaquin. Why did you like these emperors so much? And by the way, I like them as actors. I love Joseph Quinn and Heckinger. So yeah, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I said I was slightly warmer. I mean, I'm not going out and saying that, John, you're wrong. You clearly missed the nuance of what they were doing.
Yeah, the nuance.
Joseph Quinn was the closer of the two who did have those Commodus vibes.
Yeah, fair point.
But I think when you have so many main characters, only so much time can be devoted to them. And maybe this was covered and it just went right over my head, but it's kind of like, okay, Connie Nielsen was the daughter of the emperor, the sister of the emperor.
Yeah.
Her son was going to carry the throne. Son goes away. Who are these two guys?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things that I would have liked to have known. Cause I'm like, I'm assuming you're related to them.
There's a story being told in the movie that they survived in the jungle or the wilderness or the woods, and they were raised by animals, and that's how they became so vicious and became to lead Rome. That they come from this maybe ostracized section of the family. I don't know specifically why they become emperors, but there's allusions to how they achieve this status, but it doesn't feel believable at all. So I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
It doesn't feel believable because I'm trying to look at who is loyal to these two.
Right. Right.
And again, I don't put this at the performance of the actors. Again, this is all scripting.
Yeah.
Who are they? One,
Yeah.
But also, why are people loyal to them? Like, of course, you know, you're going to be loyal to the Emperor. I get that, but it would help the audience, or it would help me understand, like, this is how they came to the throne.
Yeah.
Even twin emperors, I'm like, that as a concept doesn't make sense. I mean, like, that you have two siblings, like, it wouldn't have been both. Like, whoever put them on the throne wouldn't have put both of them on the throne. So
good point.
How they made that decision, there's a lot of history there that may have been interesting. But again, you have a movie that 2 hours and 20 minutes and not all of it's great. So maybe they didn't want to devote a bunch of real estate to that. But Joseph Quinn as the more capable of the two. Not that either one of them are capable, but the more capable of the two. I like Joseph Quinn as an actor a lot. I mean, like Stranger Things definitely, but also A Quiet Place day one, and getting to see this more villainous turn. I mean, yes, I mean they are absolutely, they are hamming it up to the upteenth degree, and getting to see Fred Heckinger's sort of, I can't remember the Roman emperor that made his horse like a member of a council, but that's clearly what this is alluding to.
Was Caligula. I think that was Caligula.
Was it Caligula?
Yeah, I think,
So it seems like that's what this is referring or like alluding to, or if these two are based in fact, that you know, the second time someone puts an animal on a council, maybe it's time that they go. But yeah, I mean, they didn't bother me as much as how the story just wasn't capturing me.
Yeah, fair point. All right, final thoughts, Shen. I mean, we should say, you know, David Scarper wrote this. He also wrote Napoleon. So the track record's a little spotty with him because he wrote 3 episodes of Man in the High Castle. I know people like Man in the High Castle, but All the Money in the World, I like that movie. I thought that was a really well-written film. But Day the Earth Stood Still, Last Castle, a little bit less so. So bit of a spotty track record as a screenwriter. I think that's where this film, I agree with you, that's where this film for me falls apart, is the story overall, because I think everyone else is given the best. Even Ridley, I think, is directing the hell out of this thing for what it is. And the music, I like the music here. Harry Gregson Williams, I think, is the music. So, like, to me, the elements are here. The cinematography is here. The scope of the film is here. It's just the story is way too lightweight when you come out of something like the original Gladiator in the end to be effective. So, any final words here as we wrap up our review?
I mean, like, I have read that some people are enjoying this. And again, I think that's fantastic. I think right now, supporting movies in the theaters, if you like to see movies in the theaters, this is a very important time to do it, because our industry is going through a bit of a change, a bit of a transition right now.
For sure.
So if you do enjoy this, fantastic. Go see it on the biggest screen possible. If you like it that much, go see it again. It won't be one that I will be seeing again, and less than 50-50 odds that if I were to catch it on a streamer or on HBO, that I'm going to stop. But I mean, that's the beautiful thing about film and TV, is there's something for everybody, and you don't have to like everything.
Absolutely. Well, there you go. That's our episode of the Geek Buddies for the week. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. As we said already, hope you're having a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday and enjoying your time as much as possible. If you missed our spoiler review of Wicked Part 1, it is up. We did it live. So it's a long review, and it's about an hour, 15 minutes, and then 45 minutes afterwards are the Streamlabs and Super Chat. So if you want to watch our review, it is available there, or listen to it on our podcast stream. Shannon, what do we have to tell the fine folks here?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram, at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram, at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, where he's probably watching some show on Broadway right now, it's at NKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Roca, who is here for you, rain or shine, holiday, not holiday, it's at The Roca Says.
I never stop working. You're absolutely right. But yes, Michael's probably enjoying some Broadway show. Good job there, Michael. But yes, we love him. So we hope it. But please make sure you subscribe to the channel down below and hit that bell. But leave your comments about everything we talked about. What are your thoughts on Squid Game? What are your thoughts on the Marvel news here with Champions and with Captain America 4 reshoots? And of course, your thoughts on Gladiator 2. Keep it civil, but leave your thoughts down below. We'd love to hear from you all for sure. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast as well. We're getting more and more people coming over to the podcast side of things. So please join them and subscribe. If you don't want to see our pretty faces, you can listen to us and take us on the go wherever you go in this world, especially on a holiday weekend like this one. So thanks so much. Take care of yourselves. Be well. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode here of the
Geek Buddies.